Hello, everybody. Good to be back with you. It is a Monday here as I'm cutting this, and it's been a busy weekend. I had, of course, sessions throughout the week, and then on Saturday, we had the second clarity session for skillful means number 4. And I might be a little wrong, but I'm not very wrong. And at the end of the session on Saturday, I was looking at a whole room full of people of awakened beings, and they were very pleased. So it's just amazing that is working so well. And then yesterday we had satsang, had the most we've ever had, which was 71. We had 71 participants plus Betsy and I. And I got back. It was apparently a very powerful meeting. I thought it was. Betsy thought it was. And we got a whole lot of emails from you guys, and you thought it was. So I can't tell you what a difference attending satsang can make in your life. I've tried to tell you, and I've obviously failed because loads and loads of you are not coming, but more and more of you are coming. And I'm proud of you for that. Good for you. You'll be awfully glad you did. I believe there's some people might not fit there. I understand, but it's worth your trying. And if you can hear me, then it's very definitely worth your staying. Somebody thanked me yesterday for something or I think it was Saturday or Sunday. And I told her, oh, well, the miracle is not in what I say. The miracle is that you can hear me. And that's the truth, because the big miracle of finding a proper teacher is to find a teacher that you can hear. And when you clink, not just, oh, but clink with a teacher, that's your teacher. And I have had numerous people tell me that they cut on YouTube and they were watching me for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 20 seconds, whatever. And they went, but that's my teacher. That's the guy. That's the guy. And so give it a whirl. There is a skillful means number 5 coming up in July. It's about half sold out right now. These things do tend to sell out early. So if you're interested, go to awakeningclaritynow.com and you'll see a post on it. And go to the post page, you'll see a post on it. And I haven't really done any announcement of it yet because these things have sold out so fast that I didn't see any reason to. And I'm still not going to send out a flyer or anything else. I'm mentioning it here and I mention it on the website. And I'm thinking that those who need to hear will. So away from that, and let's get to, so the powerful sessions that have been reported to me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't know that this is the reason. Actually, I'm sure it's not the reason, but it's part of the reason that these sessions have been so powerful, because there's been just a little click over here. I don't know what it is. I never do. But there's been some kind of little click over here, and it's made a difference in the impact of the teaching. Who knows? Maybe it'll even carry in this video, although, I always doubt it, but you never can tell. You like some of them. So at any rate, last Monday, a week ago, I came up with a new word, and I'm going to share it with you as I've shared it with people for the last week, to much applause, so to speak. And the word is remisidentification. Remisidentification. Re meaning again, miss meaning wrong, identification meaning was what we think it does. I am whatever I'm identifying as. So like for over 50 years, I was identifying, I thought it was this, right? And I can't say I'm not this, but I'm this and everything else. So I'm not like limited to being this or to being the one that's listening to this either. The one that's listening to this is the very same one that's recording this. Hi, good to see you, Awakeness. Welcome home. So remisidentification. Let's go over that. So in when a child first appears upon our planet, in other words, when it comes out the birth canal, then when the child's vision, once we've cleared up its eyes and stuff, the child's vision is going to be that of what? I work with psychiatrists all over the world, and they tell me that there is no sense of me or other there at the time of birth. And that actually there's no sense of identification at birth. Hence, no me or other. There's just, what would it be? Let's see if we can figure it out together. So the baby comes out the tube, it finds itself in light, which is new. And what else? Now the baby has no identification. So this ain't a baby thinking. We're not trying to figure out what's the baby thinking. The baby ain't thinking nothing. The baby is not yet a thinker. It's a bundle of conditioning. And what that bundle of conditioning does when it opens its eyes, it's and it is, I believe, check with me, but I think that is oneness, experiencing oneness as oneness without even knowing it, because there's no intellecting of it. There's just so there's no identification. I'm going to be mixing up absolute and relative terms in this because I can't not. I can't teach you if I stick strictly to the absolute, and I can't not go wrong if I teach you through relative words. So you're just going to figure it out, because I'm just trying to be as helpful as I can. That's this teaching's aim, is to be as helpful as it can be, not necessarily to be the most accurate. I think that there are people that tell a starker truth than this one, and I'm aware of what they're doing, and I'm aware of the goodness of it. But the problem is that sometimes these visions of starker truth are simply missed. It's enough to go wow over, but it's not enough to wake people up. I'm not saying it never is. I'm just saying that a lot of times it's not. So this teaching's aim is not to be accurate. It's not to be sloppy either, but it's just to be helpful in the most precise terms that I can present that can still be helpful. That's what the idea here is. So to just be of service to you. I'm already of service as a happy slave to 2 dogs and a wife, so I might as well be a happy slave for you too. So remisidentification. Initially, there's no identification. And then there's a rising sense of awareness. And this awareness, there's a rising sense of something. And then there comes a day when it's seen, oh my God, there's a me here. You don't know that there's a me here, and you just don't know it until you do. A client of mine got a 2-year-old boy, took him to the men's department at the busiest department store, took him in front of the mirror. The first thing that baby did was that little boy did was walk around the mirror to see if he could play with that other little boy over there. He just figured he was behind this thing. So there was no understanding that was him. And some people might know it before he's 2 years old, and some people might not know it at 5. Who knows? What I'm just saying is that we move from no identification, and then we're trained into believing that we're this thing, right? And there's a natural arising anyway, which is there's a sense of locality, and there's a some sort of longing for identification or something. And mom and dad come in, and using the tried and true comparison method, they teach you or train you to believe. They teach you what you are. They tell you what you are according to them. That doesn't mean that's what you are, but it means according to your parents, that's what you are. And your parents are according to whatever their parents said they were, and back and back and back. So what we can look, and we can really see that there's just been a lot of hearsay floating through the centuries, the millennia, as a matter of fact, just been a lot of hearsay, because there's a sense of identification, there's a sense of me, but I'm telling you that there's nothing in the middle of that. We are simply the senses of this body and the animating presence of this body, which is also the same animating presence that's animating the rest of the universe too, because there's no boundaries here. It's not like one that starts right outside my jacket here. So this animating presence comes to recognize, comes to believe, I'm Fred. That's what it's taught. Daddy says, Fred, Daddy. Fred, Mommy. Fred, room. Fred's room. Fred's world. Fred's ball. Fred's school. And when we put that child in school, immediately it's my school, my teachers, my friends, my desk, my aisle, my room, my, and we're building up. We're adding to. We've received a story, and because I mean, your parents didn't do it alone. They got to, they got everybody to join in on that, friends and neighbors and all that, because they went to the friends and neighbors and they said, hey, we've got a new unit. And everybody said, that's great. What are you going to call it? And I said, we're going to call it Fred. And the neighbors and the people in the family and the friends and all that, they said, well, great. That sounds really good. Tell you what, we'll help you. We'll help you to brainwash that child into believing that it's a Fred. We'll call it Fred too. And everybody does. And it's assumed that there's a Fred here. And most importantly, it's assumed by whatever is here that it is a very, very small and limited and frail almost Fred, as opposed to the big wild blue yonder out there, as opposed to the world. So there's no identification, and there's identification, but it's not just identification. There's no identification. It will move straight from no identification into misidentification, because we come out of no identification, not knowing what, just not thinking, no words, no language, into whatever this is for me. There's this, and then there's this for me. There's my this. This is misidentification, because hopefully you've come to see, at least in your mind, I mean, you know that you're not that body, don't you? I mean, if you were that body, that I just got an email on my phone there from Peter. I feel the need to say, so there is no one in here, my attention literally, and I can't finish it. I'm talking to you, but I just saw that come in and I thought, well, gee whiz, that ties right into our conversation. That's the kind of emails that Betsy has been shuffling all weekend. I'm going to have to do a post with a bunch of them. But the point is, we move from identification into misidentification. And I was only in a misidentification for a little over 50 years. I mean, I was sold. And I believe there was a Fred Davis here, but I believed I was a Fred Davis, and I believe a Fred Davis looked just like this. And if there was anything I knew about Fred Davis, it was the fact that he was not awake, and he should be. Right? He should be, but he's not. So we come into, we have an awakening, or awakening occurs, would be a better way to put it, because it doesn't happen to anybody. Awakening occurs. And now there is, guess what? There's no identification, unless there may be some slight identification as, oh, I am the light, or the bright, or the witness, or I am whatever. It may be some kind of misunderstanding like that. And so there may be some light misidentification, but it's nothing like the identification it just came out of. So now, and is it the unit, that is in misidentification, well, you're not the unit. I was asking on a tirade a minute ago about that. You, by this time you got into this video, you know, you've been told umpteen times that you are not that unit. Well, suppose that was true. Suppose they all told you the truth, but suppose I've even told you the truth, scoundrel that I am, and that you really are not that body. So if you're not that body, what else is there over there? What is it? If you're not that body, what are you? What's left? I don't want to answer that for you. I'd like for you to find out. It won't take you long, unless it does. You're willing to tell yourself the truth, won't take you any length of time at all. But willingness to tell yourself the truth, we don't know how to initiate that. It seems to just happen. As a matter of fact, all this just seems to happen. Now, at first, and when I'm in that identification with the body, it's happening to me, the body. And the body's at high risk because, wow, look at all this danger. Look at how knowledgeable everybody else is, but I just feel like I didn't get an owner's manual. Everybody else did but me. So the next thing happens is with this awakening is that there's the dropping of what? It's the dropping of misidentification. No, the baby has no identification. Then in adolescence, on up to, in my case, 52 or 3, then there is misidentification. Even though I was an awakening in 1992, it was brief because it got sucked up right back by what? By not Fred, by the ego. And there's no ego in here. There's no ego in that over there. Like, you can't find it, you can't locate it, you can't show it to anybody because it's not a thing, it's patterns. These patterns, they're readily identifiable here. You've seen this before. It's trained you to call it Fred, right? Isn't that what's happened? I asked you, or I told you, hi, I'm Fred Davis. Okay, you got to call it something. You can call it a hole in the wall and it would probably answer, but it might not. And other people wouldn't know what you were talking about, even if I did, because I've been called much worse things than Fred Davis. Although that in itself is probably not a compliment. So we believe, we come to see the truth that there's no Fred. And what is it that comes to see the truth that there's no Fred? If this is not a Fred, and it's not, it's a unit. It's a unit, folks. When I look over at a stranger on a bench, you know what I see? I see a stranger on a bench. I see a unit on a bench. Now, I might go into such detail as that it's a man or a woman. If it's a pretty woman, I'm probably going to look twice. Sorry, I know I should be better than that, but I notice I'm not. So at any rate, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not going to know anything about that other than the fact that, at least in my opinion, it's a unit on a bench. Let's say a bus stop, unit at a bus stop. Speaking of bus stops, let me tell you what you are. And this is universal. Every seeker is a bus at rest at the bus stop, waiting for the bus, revving its engine, going nowhere and waiting for the bus, but it's the bus that's waiting for the bus. This won't make any sense to you probably until you wake up, but once you do, you go have a good laugh. So, because I get laughs from awake beings with that all the time. But I don't know, you know, it's out of context here. So who knows what carries and does. But I can't control this. Don't think there's anybody in command of what's being said here. There's not. There's just what's being said. There's an apparent Fred, there's an apparent teacher, but there's no Fred here and there's no teacher here. They're just patterns here, they're patterns there. There are identifiable repetitive patterns here. We call it Fred. So when I believe that there's a Fred, the unmanifest awakeness that comes to see the truth upon what we call awakening, which is really just consciousness noticing itself. Okay, and I don't use consciousness and awakeness interchangeably, but I noticed I just did because I'm still sloppy. But there's consciousness and there's that which is prior to consciousness, which has no name, no form, no way of speaking of it. Nonetheless, I have handily tagged it with awakeness. And when I say awakeness, I love it, because when I say awareness, everybody's got a pretty good idea what I'm saying. But when I say awakeness, everybody's lost. And it's better to be lost and know that you're lost than to think you know what's going on and when you don't. Because there's one sort of person, more than one, but there's particularly one sort of person that I can't wake up, and that's the person who thinks they are already awake. So if you think that probably I'm actually awake, you don't need to talk to me. You need to go talk to some other teacher. Because I'm just gonna slap you out of that, confront you with the truth, and then you'll thank me. It's the way it happens. You'll be mad at me, and then you'll thank me. See, I gotta love you more than I need you to like me. So there is, when we go back to when that ego starts to rebuild, the first thing it does is it commandeers the awakening that's just occurred to nobody and claims it as Fred's awakening. Fred just woke up. God almighty, I have finally got it. Says who? Well, says Fred. And I am the great one who has achieved enlightenment. Says Fred, but there's no Fred, folks. So that can't be. The whole thing is delusional. Forget illusional. That's delusion. And because there's no Fred. So there can't be a Fred that possibly had an awakening. And there's no Bob or Carol or whatever your name is either. So don't expect Bob or Carol to wake up here today, but awakeness might. People wake up from my videos all the time. I get steady email. Got one today. At least one. So at any rate, when we begin to think, I'm a Fred and I've woken up, that's re-misidentification. It's because we misidentified earlier when we thought we were the unit. Then we came to see the truth. We moved from the truth. We didn't know the truth. We just were the truth. And we moved from that into misidentification. And then we woke up and we moved into no identification or identification, some kind of quasi-identification with the unmanifest or something like that. And then through the wonders of the dream and conditioning, we get pulled right back in. And we are now, I'm a Fred who's had an awakening. And that's what happened in 1992. That awakening was short, but it bugged me for the next 14 years. I couldn't unsee it. I mean, maybe you didn't really see that. Maybe you were drunk. I never could believe any of that. I knew the truth. I just had forgotten what the truth was. See, and that's really just a booby prize. It's knowing what the truth is here, right now. In the face of this audience, this computer, this ceiling fan and light and all of that, I know who I am. I haven't a clue as to what that is, but I know who I am. We could call me, if you wanted to, we could call me divinity, but we could call you divinity too. That's actually and that is divinity starting to bark in the living room. And I may go close the doors so that we don't have to listen to divinity quite so keenly as it works out that bit of a misidentification, because it thinks that the mailman is a stranger instead of itself in another suit. But that's what it is. But nonetheless, let me go close the doors. Okay, boys. Thank you. Thank you. That's enough. Thank you. Jack. Good. Thank you. Good boy. Good boy. So years ago, I got these two animals and I gave them employment as dogs. I got a couple of dogs. And I happened to get a couple of dogs that are naturally guard dogs, even though they're small. They were to wake up the mastiffs to go get the thieves who were breaking into the temple. They were to alert the mastiffs. And when they bark, I find that annoying. I hired them to be dogs. What do dogs do? They bark. Now they're at this end of the house and it's stuff coming in the other door. That's probably Betsy back from Lowe's. I digress, do I not? Misidentification. Well, isn't that what we always said was oscillation? Yes, and it's not. And oscillation is not nearly so skillful a word, even though I've used it for 15 years. Okay, I've used that word for 15 years, but it nonetheless is not skillful. The more skillful term is misidentification. And why is it that? Well, I probably haven't had but 1,000 people tell me, you know, Fred, I move into clarity and then I move out. Fred, I notice that I'm very clear and then I fall out of it. I'm in and I'm out. I'm there and I'm here. And well, you know, I'm kind of there and then whoop, next thing you know, I'm right back in my life. So oscillation has the smack of a unit in it, doesn't it? That a unit comes to clarity and then falls out of it, poor unit. But there's no unit that's clear, I can promise you, especially not this one. This is not a clear unit. This is a foggy unit, but I am very clear. I'm very clear that this is my virtual unit and that this is the way I'm experiencing the relative world, which among other things, maybe the only thing is that I know that I get to come to experience myself objectively. I get to experience myself and that really only works if I think I'm afraid. And this awakeness is speaking. It only works if I think I'm afraid, because then I can say, well, I am afraid and this is a not Fred. And since it's and actually this is a historic not Fred, so we'll call it Buddha, whatever. The point being there's no Fred. So there's no Fred who's reached the crescendo of awakening. There hasn't been an arc. It's misidentification. There's no unit doing anything. Who can, if I tell you your problem is misidentification, and tell me what Bob's going to do about that. Bob, you're suffering from misidentification. What in the hell are you talking about? Right? Or even if, oh, Fred, I kind of get that, but I don't know how not to misidentify. Referring to this unit, this poor unit. It just can't stay clear to save its life, right? Nuts. Now I see that was Amazon. You love this? I mean, it's such a formal discussion we're having here. There's my lamp. Just notice that that's horny in. We don't need the lamp just now. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Misidentification. The only one that can handle correcting misidentification is awakeness, because it is awakeness that has no identity, because there is nothing in the middle of it. It's unmanifest. It's whatever is, and then, but that unit, with that unit, there will arise a sense of being. But there's a sense of being only so long as there is a unit. But you are not dependent upon units, but you are if you want to experience the dream. If you want to experience yourself objectively, you will need a unit. Those dog units in there, they're doing their job. They're being dog units. And they don't know how not to be dog units. And we don't actually know how to not do what we're doing. Is it possible that we have always done our best in life? I mean, I know it's not enough. I know it's not good enough. It's not cool enough. We're not enough. But what if this here now is it? And when I say it's it, I don't mean it's it for you. I mean, you are it. And the reason you can't understand this is that there's nothing outside of it that could come to see and understand it from afar. And that's what we're looking for. I'm looking for oneness, said oneness. I'm looking for awakeness, said awakeness. Now, within awakeness, there may be units out there saying, I'm looking for awakeness, says Fred. Or I'm looking for oneness, says Fred. But that's misidentification. And then we come clear out of it. And then the reason we had a wonderful awakening 10 years ago, or yesterday, or last week, or back in the 60s, or whatever it is, but we had some wonderful awakening back then. Back then for who? In the absence of a Fred, and there's not one here, I'm just not coloring one in where there isn't one. In the absence of a Fred, I cannot experience time. Check how it is for you, Bob or Karen. In the absence of your character. It's not your character, it's just a character. In the absence of your imagining shit, can you experience time? The answer is no. This is exactly the same reason you can't wake up soon, which is what you've always been planning to do. You're gonna wake up soon, really soon. Right after what? Fill in the blank. Read a book, meet a teacher, listen to CDs, or watch YouTube, or whatever it is. Oh, and here's another one from James. Fred, thank you for a great session Sunday. Blah, blah, blah. They've been coming in like crazy. Come and see us in satsang. If you are interested in actually coming off the search for your true nature and would like to actually live as your true nature, then I recommend Skillful Means. I recommend that because I don't do single sessions anymore. I can't meet with everybody that wants to meet with me. Even when I charge high prices, people still come. And I don't want to be just available to the rich, although, I mean, it could be a worse fate. But hopefully this is a little bit more, the Skillful Means is a little bit more democratic. And I still get to make a living, which is good because I've got to make a living just like you do. I've got a wife and 2 loud children to support. I love you. I love you.